House to Home, presented by Remax Diamond Realty.
Happy Tuesday, everybody. House to Home is back. I can't even remember the name of the show anymore, and we've only been doing it for 10 years. So Liz and Gina are back, and they're back on Home Soul. So it's so good to have you ladies back here. And we are talking about today about a topic that is getting so much traction because entrepreneurship is bigger than it's ever been on Guam. There are classes taught about it at GCC, at UOG. Everyone wants to run their own operation. But how difficult is it, or what are some of the challenges, the benefits, and everything I'd know to doing what you ladies do to actually run a functioning real estate brokerage, an agency, or even a independent operation? So how difficult is running a business?
Well, we wanted to talk about, agents out there are independent agents. They work under a brokerage. Now, Gina and I, we run our own agency. So under our agency, we do have agents. They their income is reported to Rev and Tax. They pay gross receipt tax, but as in any business, your business is about leveraging, you have expenses associated. Although you're an individual agent, you pay for signs, you pay for services, you pay for so many different things that is associated with our line of work. Now, as a brokerage, we manage the agents beneath us to ensure that they're providing the service. Gina and I provide service to the consumer for rental, for purchasing investment, or for purchasing residences. But all of that involves expenses. Nothing's done freely. There's no freebies in our line of work.
No such thing as a free lunch.
No such thing. Yes, we provide the service, but at the same time, anything associated with a business has to do with expenses. And I know there has been some talk sometimes in the community or the legislature about the companies out there that are making money. Yes, any business, what is the goal and what is the objective? Is to pay your expenses, pay your taxes, handle your overhead. If you don't have enough money, what happens? You close your business. And I think the key element here is to be responsible with our individual business. And people could make money. Now, if you look at the restaurant business, for example, even with Mezcla, they had to close on Saturday for lunch because they're having a difficult time finding staff. So out there, if you're looking for a job, please go apply. They need servers. Yes, yes. And
I had no idea your son, Chef Peter Duenas, his business was facing those kind of challenges.
Yeah, I think all the restaurants are facing it. Trying to get people who want to work and get paid as a server. Again, we're talking in general about the business and the issues that crop up with running a business.
Okay, Gina, you've also got interesting insight on this topic because you're saying that even at the independent level, the agents themselves are essentially their own businesses. They are their own business unit.
We operate as an independent business entity. As a real estate professional, you are your own business, and your business, well, if you're smart enough, you understand that your business is service. So that's the product that we have is the service. And part of that service is helping people sell their property, helping people find property to buy. That's essentially what our business model is or should be. And your question is, how difficult is it to run a business? It's extremely difficult. Even as an independent sole operator of my business, I still have products that I need to have, I have products that I use that I have to go to different vendors to provide. And I'm telling you, this talk about not having enough people in the workplace. Well, there's people in the workplace, not having enough good people that understand the concept of working for a living. That's what we're short of. And
because there's two different situations there. There's one is having a legitimate shortage of manpower at all. There's another one to say you may have a 100 person company, 99 of your employees don't know what the hell they're doing and everything. That's a whole different headache.
yeah, we have too many people who think that their job is to collect a paycheck, and though they don't really appreciate and understand that collecting the paycheck, you got to go to the beginning. What are you collecting the paycheck for? And you have to provide that. You have to do a good job with whatever it is you were hired to do.
Is that just a
And
generational shift in values or in work ethic? Because I was brought
I
up with
think
both of my grandparents on both sides said, whatever boy, whatever you wind up doing, if somebody gives you a job, you see that as a privilege and they're entrusting you with something and you do the best job that you can. Otherwise, we're really going to come down on you because that is a privilege, not a right.
so I think you're right, Jason, because that's exactly what my mom taught me. When I got my first job and I went home one day to complain about something about work, she looked at me and she said, "Do you like having a paycheck?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "Shut up and go back to work."
There you go. Old school way.
And and she told me, "You better do a good job," because like your parents, she kind of thought that if I did a bad job, it made her look bad.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
That's
know,
the old school.
that's
That's
the
the
old
old
school.
school.
That's the
Yes.
that's the
Yeah,
Antigua
yeah,
way, right, Liz?
yeah.
Yeah, munga
If I run
mamala,
into
munga,
your boss,
what did they say? Munga mana mamalo zu?
Yep.
That,
yeah, yeah.
But when you represent yourself, you're not only an employee of the company that has entrusted you, but you're also representing your family too. And if you dishonor them, oh boy.
boy,
Yeah,
yeah.
If
and
you're lucky,
that's
if you're lucky, the locks on your house will be changed. If you're not, your parents are waiting at home for you to have a real serious
Yeah.
lecture with you.
but you're right, that's how we were taught. But I hear too often, I've interviewed people and I would ask, "Why did you leave your last job?" "Oh, I wasn't happy there." Happy? You're looking for happiness? I actually told somebody that I was interviewing who came for a job position who said they left their last position because they weren't happy. And I just straight out told them, if you're looking for happiness, this ain't the place. We're not hiring people to make sure they're happy. We're hiring them, and here's the job description. You
But at
make
the
me
same time,
happy, get a paycheck.
at the same time, Liz and Gina, you're also not hiring people just to say you're cogs in a machine and you can be easily replaced. You're building
Absolutely
not
not.
only a brand, but you're building essentially a family.
Yeah, we're
Oh,
building a
yeah.
family and we treat our team, I mean, it is a family and we want to create a very positive environment that people will want to come to work. And it's all about if there are issues or problems, okay, what's the solution and working on that. But I think the issue here is expressing that running a business is not easy. There's expenses associated with it, and then trying to hire the right people to perform the services. For example, in our business, we have property managers, we have people in the accounting, and the property managers run around and they take care of all the different properties. It's really hard work because they're in and out, and every time there's a problem or a complaint that there's a plumbing issue, they'd have to make sure they handle that. So there's different aspects, at least for our business, the property management, our accounting, our agents, and then Gina and I, on top of that, handle our own personal, where it's like we have an umbrella and all the people under it are independent agents, and we are as well. And then there's staff that we hire. And again, going back to expenses, it isn't easy. And if we're not bringing enough sales and our checkbook is running low, what happens? Then we're going to have to cut somewhere. In the private sector, if you're not running a business properly, you're going to go out of business. If you don't pay your vendors, it's a little different, I think, in the government sector because money gets shifted around, and it's just different way of looking at it. But the private sector has to keep going, or else we can't feed
Yeah.
our families.
And we don't have a choice, Jason. We don't have the, yes, we hire people, and once they're in our team, we treat them like family and we take care of them. They take care of us, we take care of them. If you've seen the news, so Tony Roma is another industry, another restaurant that's been here for years and years and years.
Great fish.
They
I,
are
lo- I love Tony Roma's blackfish.
Well, they're finally throwing in the towel.
Yeah.
They will be closing their doors the end of August. If I were in the government and I see these businesses closing down, we were at the legislature the other day listening to the hearings about the GRT. We're advocating that they do what they promised to do when they originally raised up the GRT. And we're advocating that they bring it back to the 4%. Really, we should be at 3. There is so much surplus money going to the government that they really should be looking at giving the private sector a break for a while. But if I were in the government and I were responsible to making sure I'm creating the right atmosphere for businesses to succeed, every time a business closes down, I would want to know why, what's causing it. There are some things you cannot fix on a government level, like the number of tourists. But let's be for real. These restaurants have been operating here for how long? For them to throw in the towel, I'm sure it's taken a lot of thought and it's a lot of grief for them. They're going to lose a lot stopping, closing down their business. And, people that represent our government should be asking the question, why? And what can we do to create a better atmosphere for business owners? Because here's the deal. You should be celebrating every time there's a new millionaire in town, a new business that can now report that they're making millions. The government should celebrate. Why? And employees should celebrate, because when a business has been successful enough that they're making millions now, or 1 million or 2 million, or who cares? They're making money. We should all celebrate and say, thank goodness these businesses are doing great, because they're going to employ our kids, our nieces, our nephews, or maybe just somebody new to the island is going to have another job, because as businesses succeed, they expand. And then the other thing is, if I were the government sector and I'm listening to these businesses saying we are shorthanded, the first thing I do is go and look, are we top heavy in the government? Is our budget 90% to 93% of our budget going to payroll? Well, maybe that isn't a working model. That's not a successful model. And maybe we should cut payroll and put these people in the private sector to help the private sector out, because they're hungry for employees. Everywhere you go, you have signs that say, looking to hire. And that's a way the government could help us in the private sector, right? That's another way.
Okay,
So
we
many
were
different ways.
we're talking about staffing and everything. Liz, do you guys down there at your brokerage, do you guys have like a full-time economist on staff that actually looks at trends and analyzes and makes projections?
No,
And
We are
we
it.
don't have we're it. I mean, if
We're it.
Gina and I want to see what the trend is, we would look at our MLS system to check what the status is, how many properties have sold, and then on top of that, we will contact appraisers to find out what are they seeing. And so we utilize the resources that we have around us, all those with the experts, that has the expertise on top of what we can pull together. The title companies also have data that they have that we usually will call. I remembered asking Kim Anderson, how does it look on your side? And she was telling me that the numbers are about the same. It's just the counts have dropped. So we're seeing a different trend now with the sales, but we have to keep our finger at the pulse of things and utilize the resources that we have around us, because we all collaborate, we exchange information.
that's a good thing too, is you can kind of like tap everybody's like respective areas of expertise and get a more well-rounded view of like what the market and what the macro economy of Guam is doing, right? And Gina, how many employees do you guys have there now?
I think we're employees. I think we're at about 10 or 12. Jason, okay, keep in mind, we've gone through COVID.
And small businesses are still considered like from 1 employee all the way up to like, I think it's like what, 249, right? And then anything above that is medium-sized employer?
I believe so.
Yeah.
I believe so. But
250 is kind of like the cutoff.
Most of the businesses that are still in operation that made it through COVID, they made it through COVID because they tightened everything up.
Streamlined.
Right now the economy, it's like a pulse. It goes up, it comes down very sharply. We don't know what's going to happen 6 months from now. We can't afford to expand on anything. So, we're laughing. We are the economists. We're everything right now because we can't afford to hire. Number one, it's hard to find good people these days. We just discussed that. It's really hard to find good people. But on the other hand, we don't know what the government has in mind. We don't know what the government's doing. We can't really plan on anything because, only God knows at this point what's going to happen. So even though we're really optimistic about what's coming down from the federal level, we're really optimistic, but we don't know locally how these things are going to be applied. Like right now during the budget hearings, we were hearing talk about, well, with these new tax cuts, we're not going to expect, we're expecting less money, therefore you guys should continue paying the 5%. Well, it didn't hold true the first time the tax cuts came into play. Actually, the government of Guam made more money. So I don't know why they're still singing that song, but they are. And so, you know, we have to operate a business. The companies that are making it through are operating as if things are still in COVID, and you just keep running your business like that. That model still, you got to run it as conservatively as you can. Even as a real estate agent, you stay conservative. You try to work more so that, hopefully at the end of the year, you have a little bit more than what you expected, and you pay your bills. And unfortunately, you pay your taxes because, you owe to God what you owe to God, and you owe to the government what you owe to the government. You don't cheat on either one. And you just, hope things work out.
Okay, Liz, it's interesting because I remember the three of us were having a conversation that is eerily similar to this about 4 years ago, right in the middle of the pandemic. And we said, as business people, obviously you have to be tough, you have to be flexible, you have to be like Gina said, you have to be conservative to a certain level. What do you think are the core ideals for business people these days, whether trying to weather the storm or open like a new business in terms of, are you expected to be smart, to be creative, to be
I think
tough, to
I
be
think there are a couple things you have to do is keep your finger on the pulse of what's going on in the community and the different businesses, but also budget. What income is coming in, and you have to keep your eye on your budget. Can you survive a storm? So if something goes down in the economy, can you survive it?
and this
So
is
you
financial planning at any level, all the way back to
you
little
have
kids like saving
you
their allowance
always have
money.
to look at your finances. And I remember once in our engineering firm, our CPA told us, you're not an employment agency. You're here to provide a service. And when the market starts to dip and your budget starts to drop in terms of your income that's coming in, you've got to do a balance, and you've got to keep an eye on that, because if you're not making it and you have 40 employees or 60 employees, you have to start cutting. And how that works is then you have to start letting people go. And that's the reality of business. You can't survive unless you keep your eye on your budget and your expenses. And also, you have to pay your taxes and your bills. If you don't, the government will shut you down. If
Okay,
you don't pay taxes, it's a big issue.
one final question. I'd like both of your opinions on this, because you both have better than 60 years of local experience with this market, underneath both of your belts, and you've run such a wonderful like business. You guys have also survived a lot of really scary situations, typhoons, pandemics, economic ebbs and flows and everything. What was the most challenging hurdle that you guys have had to overcome, and what caused it?
For me, it was COVID.
Let's go. Yeah.
Yeah, it was COVID.
And you guys have been doing this all the way back to the 80s. So like that's a lot of things that have happened to our island.
Yes.
Yeah, and we couldn't work for a little while until we were deemed essential services, and that took a while. I think we were shut down for 2 months before we were deemed essential service, and people were standing by. People were coming in on the island needing housing, and they were at a standstill. They couldn't do anything. So we had to mobilize and get our services in place to handle that. So anyway, COVID really put a damper, not just on us, but many businesses. Many did not survive. And we got to remember that those were hard times. And so even now, we still have to keep that in mind in terms of the economy, employment, services for our staff, keeping them employed and making sure our income is sufficient to support them as well, in order for them to support their families.
Mm.
So it's a cycle. It's a cycle.
Yeah, so and again, Gina, it's going through those pandemic years. It's one thing to be have your pulse, or have your finger on the pulse of what's happening like around you, and be flexible. You also have to be a little bit creative, and that's what we all like learned to do, whether we wanted to or not.
Yeah, during COVID, we were absolutely creative. never in my wildest dreams would I believe that I would live through an event in time where the government would tell me what to do, when to do it, who to do it with, where I could go, where I could not go. I mean, can you believe that that actually happened? We were not allowed to go to the beach. We were not allowed to come to our office. And mind you, we collect rent for people. So can you imagine being told we couldn't come to work because our office was not essential? And we essentially collect people's rents, we pay their bills, we manage their tenants. So, I mean, honestly, we had to come in because those things could not be done remotely from our home. So we ended up, just management, only management was in here doing that work and collecting the rents and, taking care of the tenants, paying the landlord's bills, paying our GRT, filing our taxes. We came in to make sure those things got done. But man, I'm telling you, when I'm like 90 or 100 and my kids ask me, my grandchildren's kids will ask me about these times, this is like, we've lived through that. I think is phenomenal for us to have gone through that and to actually, I think I could appreciate our freedoms. Yeah. Well, now we're back into the United States of America again, right? Because I don't know that was, I don't know that felt like living in the US, but now that we are, it's like, I don't know that I could ever like knowingly allow that to be taken away from me again. I don't think I would tolerate that ever again.
And maybe just to close, and I'm sure, I don't have intimate knowledge of the financials of your agency and everything, but I'm sure there are many points in your history where you guys have run such a successful business. You probably could have cashed out and just sold the thing for a great profit many, many times, but you guys have weathered the storm and have managed to stay around for like a long time and provided a valuable service for the community. And you guys have stuck around and, inspired people that were majoring in business at UOG like me, to do the same thing. So, thank you guys for your service.
Well, thank you.
We love it. That's why we do it. Yes, the money's great. I'm not going to say it isn't. But we do it because we love our customers, we love our job, and we love our company.
And there's the one component we didn't talk about. So be smart, be creative, be flexible, and have a lot of love, because love can let you go a long way.
That's right.
Yeah.
House to Home, presented by RE/MAX Diamond Realty.